Let's go. Hey yo, what's poppin'? Drip TCG in this bitch. And today I am here to talk about the best summoning mechanic in Yu-Gi-Oh! Pendulum Shokan. As always, there is timestamps in the description for all parts of the video. There's also a couple deck lists, well, 2 of them I believe, in the description if you just want to see the list and nothing else. And yeah, let's get into it. So, when Age of Overlord dropped back in October, I was very excited to test out the new Supreme King Gate cards because I want to see if we could finally Zark people, right, with his effect. So yeah, I had basically 2 main questions I wanted to answer for myself. Is this support any good? Can you mix it with Odd Eyes? And should you mix it with Odd Eyes? I guess that's 3, right? And basically the point of this video is to try to answer all 3 of those questions. Although hint, the answer to all 3 is yes. Yes, the support is very good. Yes, you can mix it with Odd Eyes. And yes, in my opinion, you should mix it with Odd Eyes because I do believe it's better mixed than running pure Odd Eyes. Now, the biggest reason that this support is insane is single-handedly due to Supreme King Gate Magician. Sorry in advance if you've seen any other video on this deck, you've probably heard half of what I'm about to say, but I feel like it's worth emphasizing. This card is absolutely insane because it gives you a lot of things that this deck was missing, because it's a Pendulum extender, which sure, we technically had a few, but none of them that would actually make us go +1 outside of Astrograph Sorcerer. So it's a +1 Pendulum extender, which on its own makes it insanely better than pretty much all the other options we had, which, like, again, either wouldn't plus you or would have very specific activation requirements. But the other reason I think he's extremely good in any Pendulum deck is something that I don't feel is talked about enough or almost at all, which is the fact that his scale effect incentivizes you to play non-pendulum power extenders in order to make Beyond the Pendulum. Now, what do I mean by that? If you normal summon Darkwurm or Joker to search this guy and scale him and he pops himself in the extra deck, whenever you make Beyond the Pendulum, you will already have 2 monsters set up in your extra deck to pen back, right? The normal summon that you used, either Joker or Darkwurm, and Darkwurm has a bajillion cards that search it now, including Dragon Shrine, and you'll have Gate Magician himself, meaning that to make Beyond the Pendulum, instead of using 2 Pendulum monsters, you could use cards like the Castiras. You can use cards like the Bystials. You could even use new cards like the Horus package, etc., etc. And I think that's something that's, again, really not talked about enough, is exploiting the fact that Beyond the Pendulum is semi-generic, and, you know, the fact that we can use all these power extenders to make her. We don't need to use 2 Pendulum monsters to get into her, right? We can use very strong. I mean, people already knew that with Fenrir, I guess. But again, the thing has always been that if you use non-Pendulum to make her, then you still need to set up your extra deck so you have at least 2 Pendulum monsters in the extra deck. And this helps facilitate that extremely easily. And so that's another one of the reasons why I love so much how this card integrates into Pendulum strategies, because it makes you run a lot of more powerful non-Pendulum cards to help complement your strategy. Also, another reason I like Gate Magician in Odd Eyes, although this applies to most Pendulum decks as well, is that because you're summoning out Zark with the trap card, if you actually, choose to play Zark in the targets, it allows you to layer your interruptions a little bit better. Because, one of the memes, quote unquote, about Pendulum decks before was that they would pretty much just be all monster negates, right? It'd be a board full of monster interruptions, but you would easily fold to something like a Dark Ruler or similar cards that would affect your whole field in terms of monsters. Because you didn't have any other interruptions in your back row, you don't have any other interruptions in your graveyard, you don't have other interruptions in your hand, etc. And the coolest thing about Gate Magician is that he sets up Zark, which can be used even if you get hit by something like a Dark Ruler, something like a Droplet, something like a Daruma Cannon, etc., etc. And so being able to layer your interruptions in that manner is also very nice. And the other thing that's really nice about him is that He makes it so that you can combo very low to the ground, you know, with like only 2 cards. So if and when you get hand trapped and you're only left with like 2 cards left to play, you can still make some kind of a play. You know, you don't need 3-card combos anymore. Although obviously this deck has 3-card combos that, you know, if you draw those hands, you go crazy. But if and when you get hand trapped, you can still, you know, do other stuff. And of course, that gives us the chance to play a little bit more non-engine in the deck to actually, you know, be able to win those hand trap battles with the opponent. Or, you know, if you want to play like board breakers or whatever, right? Now, it was kind of funny figuring out how to make this video because, among other things, the reality is Odd Eyes is a very flexible archetype in terms of what you want to do. I mean, the game plan is almost always going to be the same among all versions. It's basically make Beyond the Pendulum, make a big Pendulum summon, and establish as many interruptions as possible via your extra deck, which kind of sounds very simplistic, but that's kind of what it comes down to. But the reality is, depending on how you want to do it, obviously that third part will change a lot. Because since this archetype has access to pretty much all levels between 1 and 7, and you have access to this broken thing called the Pendulum Summon, and you also have access to tuners, etc., etc., there's a lot of choice in terms of what extra deck options you want to choose to run. So there is a combo section to this video. This combo section is going to highlight mostly some things I want to emphasize regarding the new cards, the Supreme King Gate cards. But this is by no means like the end-all be-all to Odd Eyes combos, because really your imagination's the limit. There's just so many ways that you can... Hold up. This thing is off center and it's bugging me the fuck out. Anyways, so I strongly exhort you to, you know, just play around with the cards, and if there's certain boss monsters you want to make or certain end boards you want to make in specific, you know, try to find a way, because there's definitely a lot of flexibility in, you know, how to make your board. I'll say this now, but I'll probably repeat it later. One thing I really like about at least the way I'm playing the deck right now is that there's no one specific choke point in the deck, at least the way I run it. And that's not to say I can't fold to a single hand trap, of course. This deck and any deck, you know, if all you open is one starter and it gets ashed, of course you're passing turn. What I mean is there's no Isolde, let's put it that way. There's no Halki Fibrax. There's no one card that my opponent can stop that will guaranteed stop my turn. Of course, many people will try to hold their interruptions for Beyond the Pendulum because, of course, she searches any pendulum in the game, kind of busted. But as long as I have a low skill and a high skill, I don't need Beyond the Pendulum to resolve. Now, obviously, if I don't have both a low skill and a high skill, I need that bitch to resolve. I need that fine young lady to resolve. Okay? But then you know what? If they have a hand trap, then they have it. It's cool. But yeah, as long as I have a low skill and a high skill, I don't need BTP to resolve, because there's many generic extra plays that I can make with pretty much any hand as long as I can pendulum summon. Also, full disclosure, I'm a filthy casual. And what I mean is I only play with friends and online, so, you know, take that as you will. Because I know some people look at these videos for competitive advice. I'm not alleging to be a competitive player, is all I'm saying. Also, I'll point this out because I didn't get this at first, but yes, you do want to make Beyond the Pendulum every single time, even if you already have combo in your hand and you don't need her to resolve. Because 1, she's free card advantage. 2, she baits out hand traps like a motherfucker, because everyone will always drop an imperm on her. And 3, she's free card advantage. Because if you have 2 monsters on board and you link summon into her and pendulum summon them back, at the very least you have a free link 2 to make even bigger link plays and exceed the pendulum, the link 3. She's wild. She's actually, I would argue she's better than Beyond the Pendulum overall. It's just that she obviously doesn't search anything, but her utility, like she will give you more than what BTP will give you. Yeah. All right, so now let's get into the good stuff, the actual combos. So the first couple of combos I'm going to show off, all of them are going to use a random extender that isn't a pendulum. And these combos aren't going to be the most efficient way to get to the end boards that you're going to see, because that's not the point. The point I want to show with these first couple combos is how Gate Magician will help you make Pendulum plays even if you're using extenders that aren't Pendulum monsters. Because again, I think one of the biggest unexplored avenues of Pendulum is using power extenders, again, like Fenrir, like Bystials, and there's probably others that I'm not thinking about, as ways to get into Beyond the Pendulum, as opposed to just using, full Pendulum gas, right? So this first one's going to be Darkwurm plus a non-Pendulum extender. There's many ways to play this out depending on what your extract looks like. This is just one of the ways you can play it out. Normal summon Darkwurm, Darkwurm effect search Gate Magician scale, place Gate 0 from the deck. Now we special summon out our extender, make BTP. She'll search a high scale. Now we're going to pend for 2, Gate Magician search wings, make exceed the pendulum, grab back Darkwurm, wings to search another magician. Magician summon himself out, make Absolute Dragon, exceed to summon out Darkwurm, link into Masquerena, Absolute make Vortex, and pass. So here we ended on Masquerena plus Vortex, but the cool thing is that when we get to opponent's main phase, we can use Exceed the Pendulum to summon out Gate Magician and use Masquerena at this point, and then Gate Magician is going to search as a copy of Wings, and Masquerena, of course, has a couple options because you can make a 3-material Appaloosa. You could go for an SP Little Knight. If you want to be old school and go for Unicorn, I guess that's an option too. But the other thing to note is that since this combo uses used a non-pendulum extender, if this card were something like a Fenrir, then you would also have, a second copy of Fenrir on the field, which you would have pendulum summoned out. If this were something like a Lubellion, then you'd have an end-phase Magnum search and a possible regain setup. If this were something like an Emseti, that like Emseti discard Darkwurm, and you would have also drawn a card, plus you would have had Sarcophagus on field. Again, many different power extenders that you could run in this deck, and you'd still be able to make Pendulum plays, plus benefit from all those power extenders out there. Now, this one is also a 2-card play, but this one's only doable with specifically Dragon Shrine. But the cool thing is that it's Dragon Shrine plus anything that you can normal summon. So let's see. Dragon Shrine, dump Arc, dump Darkwurm. Darkwurm spec, search out Gate Magician, do the technique, put up Gate 0, normal summon, Beyond the Pend. This time we do need Arc, I believe. Pen for 2, Gate Magician searches the trap card. Exceed the pen, summon out Gate summon himself, exceed the pen, revive the Arc we dumped earlier, and stop. So here I went for SP Little Knight. This could have also just been a Masquerena instead. And you can use Masquerena plus exceed the pendulum next turn to go into whatever you want to make. But here, off of 2 cards, one of them just being a random normal summon, you end on 3 interruptions, right? Because let's just click here real quick. Once your opponent does anything in their main phase, you will get Exceed the Pendulum to summon out Gate Magician from the graveyard. Gate Magician will search Wings, and now you have 1, 2, 3 interruptions plus follow-up, and you still had 3 other cards in hand you opened. Now on to the truly juicy stuff. So this is going to be Darkwurm or Joker, random extender plus specifically Arc Pendulum as your high skill. So check it out. Darkwurm, search Gate Magician scale, make itself turn to Gate 0, extender, BTP search, Butler of all cards. Now we're going to summon everything. Let's pause this right here. I absolutely love this play. I'm not going to lie. This comes up so often in just very random hands, especially many times when I get hand trapped, this kind of play comes up. Or when I hard open Butler, that you can use Beyond the Pendulum to pop your own cards, and popping Butler and a scale is practically free, as you're about to see, because even though you're technically going -1 because you're popping 2, but Butler will obviously rescale itself if I just play this out a little bit more. Okay. Right, so you pop Butler, but Butler rescales itself, but also that makes you be able to trigger Arc Pendulum. So you technically went net 0 if you count the fact that you also summoned something from Arc. But what's better is that this guy's gonna dump something, right? You dump Arc, which is a level 7, and then you bring it back with Exceed. So overall, you're going plus in the whole interaction. And now since this is a level 7 because of its effect, you know, it copies what it dumps, you overlay it into Absolute, and you make Appaloosa. And just like that, you end on Appaloosa, Vortex, and Gate Magician with the trap card set. But what I really, really like about this end board isn't so much the interactions that we ended on. Oh, and of course, follow-up. But what I really like is the fact that you end with Butler in scale with at least 2 Odd-Eyes names engraved, meaning that you have a guaranteed attack negate, which is very nice if you ever actually do end on Appaloosa, because, you know, 99% of the time, people are going to try to attack over Appaloosa. And it just means that Appaloosa is more likely to actually get full value. Now, this combo is going to end on basically the same exact end board as the last one. It's just that this one will end with Butler on the field as a monster instead of a scale. So let me just wait for it to play out and I'll explain myself. So we have Seer, dump Valet, grab back follow-up, summon out Valet, Valet dump Butler, make Appaloosa, Butler summon itself out, targeting Seer, Arc summon out Dissolver from deck, Dissolver, make Vortex, and pause. So there's 2 things that are different. Firstly, like I said, we have Butler on the field instead of in the scale, meaning that Appaloosa no longer has the protection, the battle phase protection it had. But it's important to know that you can go for this play when you have this kind of a hand. Because if you have like another monster you can Pendulum summon, right? Because obviously this was 3 cards, you still have 2 other cards, and you know, it's not like a hand trap or anything. Then you can summon it out, and that monster, you know, you can Pendulum summon it out, and that monster plus Butler can make like a Masquerena or an SP or something like that. So it's basically another route you can take if you know you have even more gas and you want to make even more interruptions. Also, Vortex is made properly in this combo, unlike the last one where it was made by Absolute. You know, if you value this card being fusion summoned properly, then this is also a combo you can go for. Now, this is going to be one of my favorite combos because it does a little bit of everything. There's even a version of this combo that ends on the same board, but you draw 2 cards with Lady Ange. I'm not going to do that one just because I'm not going to show it. But anyways, this is going to be Joker plus Revolution Dragon. And this one is one of those combos that's a bit more complex because you're actually trying to be efficient with the combo. So sorry, I said Joker plus Revo, but it's actually Joker plus either of these 2 cards, right? Revolution Dragon or Seer. Either one will work. So Joker search whichever one you're missing. Revo search Arc, scale Seer. Seer grab Revo, grab back Revo. Arc summon out a Valet from deck. Valet dump Dissolver. Revo search Darkwurm, link to into BTP. Beyond the Pen search Monkey Board. Penned Fortress. Darkwurm search Gate Magician. Monkey Bird search Follow-Up. Link 2 into Exceed. Exceed grab back. Exceed summon out Gate Magician. Gate Magician search the trap card. Link 2 into Appaloosa. Seer revive Dissolver. Dissolver fuse into Vortex. And scale Valet and pass. Now, what I like about this end board, you know, it ends on the same stuff, right? Appaloosa, Vortex, Gate Magician, trap card, follow-up. But what I really like is that you end with Valet in scale plus 4 at least 4 Pendulum monsters in your extra deck, which effectively gives Appaloosa an extra 1200 attack. Meaning that if he hasn't used his first negate, or she, sorry. Well, I don't know. Whatever. If they haven't used their first negate, then they are at an effective 2800 attack. So your opponent isn't going to be able to beat over it with anything with less than, you know, 2800 or less. And if Appaloosa has used up one of its negates, meaning it's at 800, your opponent still won't be able to beat over her unless they have something with at least 2k attack or more. So no normal summon is getting over this girl or guy or person, thing, whatever. The bear. Now, these next 2 combos aren't exactly combos per se. They're just a reminder that anytime you open both Dissolver and Butler, you can go for a early Vortex Dragon play and then go from there. Obviously, the specifics of how you play it out is going to depend completely on your hand and, of course, what your opponent does to interact with you. And this kind of a play anyways isn't going to happen too often because Dissolver is always going to be at 1-of if you're even playing him at all. But I still want to show them off because, again, it's something that can and eventually will happen at least once to you. And it's still worth knowing, you know, what options you have available, right? Not to mention, an early Vortex is always nice because, you know, it protects the rest of your combo. So, you know, just something to keep in mind. So this is an interesting combo. This is Arc plus Butler plus any other odd eyes. So you would only ever go for this play if it's your only play and you have nothing better to do with your hand, because you know, it's very high risk. But you know, if it's the only play, then it's still worth knowing how to play it out, right? So we're gonna scale Arc, scale the other odd eyes card, Butler pop to summon itself, Arc spec from deck. We summon out Seer, then we link into Beyond the Pendulum, search Dissolver, scale Dissolver, pen for 2. Let me pause real quick. So this is one of the cooler things about this combo is that Seer normally would send something to the graveyard and then you can revive that off of Exceed, or you would send like a Butler to destroy an odd eyes and proc Arc. But here, since we actually haven't used our normal summon, we get to do a really cool play, which is to send something to the extra deck. We're going to send Joker. And then we grab Joker to the hand with Exceed, Joker search Gate Magician, Dissolver fuse away, Exceed revive the Gate Magician search for the trap, and link into Appaloosa. So we still ended on everything, even though it was kind of an awkward opener. Now, here we have a very important OTK pattern to keep in mind. Now, of course, how you OTK your opponent and break their board will always depend on your entire 6-card hand and what your opponent is doing and like where they're interrupting you. That said, anytime you have any of the following 2 scenarios you're going to see, so this clip and the next clip, just know that you have an OTK. So the first one is anytime you have a high scale and you can make Beyond the Pendulum. That's it. The rest of your hand does not matter. So I'll just play this for a bit. Joker gets negated. Obviously, it doesn't matter. This is hypothetical. Search Gate Magician. So scale Gate Magician, scale Arc, pen for 1. Gate Magician pop itself. Make Exceed, grab back Gate Magician. Gate Magician summoned by Exceed, grab Wings. Wings search for another Gate Magician, spec by his own effect, overlay into Absolute, link for access code, Absolute summon out Rebellion from the extra deck, then overlay that into Overlord. And so in terms of just raw damage, this is obviously way over game because you have, you know, 9,000 here because he attacks 3 times and 5,300, so that's like 14k, right? 14,300, a billion damage. It's a billion damage. But another nice interaction about this that I like is that after you, for example, pop 2 cards with access code, because access code is the monster with the most attack on the field, you can get rid of another one of your opponent's cards without having to give up your Overlord, and you still have basically 12,000 damage, right? Like 9,000 and 2,900 over here. Now, the other way to do this, which is basically the same idea, just execute it differently, is if you have a high scale and you can pend out 3 monsters, because it's basically going to do the same thing, right? High scale, low scale, and you pend and you have 3 monsters on the field, meaning you can make Exceed, grab back Gate Magician, Wings search for another Gate Magician, spec, and overlay into Absolute, and it's basically the exact same play. So again, this isn't always going to be the way you OTK, but it's important to keep in mind because it's very easy to execute as long as you remember to look out for it. The only thing to keep in mind is that you can only do this play if you haven't used Wings of Light during the turn, because if you had to use Wings to search the first Gate Magician, for example, then at that point you can't search a second copy of Wings because it's once per turn. So you would need another level 7 to make Absolute. So I'm going to include this for the people that are just looking at the combo section and don't see my profile, because I'm going to talk about Seyfert later on too. Seyfert is a very interesting card for the deck because it gives you access to your bystial cards. I mean, it has other applications, but it can give you access to your bystial cards. And a really cool synergy with the deck is that if you hard draw Seyfert and one of the multiple ways to get to Darkwurm to your hand, you could do the following. You can normal summon Seyfert, Seyfert effect, send itself plus Darkwurm from the hand as cost to search the bystial Lubellion. Then, with Darkwurm in graveyard now, you can use its effect to spec itself out, effect to search Supreme King Gate Magician, keep that in hand. Then we have Lubellion, which can discard itself, search Magnamut, Magnamut summon, banishing out the Seyfert, effect for end phase, Lubellion do the switcheroo, effect to set up Regained or Branded Beast. That was a joke, we're always setting Regained. And then we have Gate Magician, which you can scale, pop himself to bring out Gate 0. And now these two can be linked off into Beyond, and you will of course have 2 monsters in the extract which you can Pendulum summon out. And from there on out, it's going to depend on the rest of your hand. But like I said, it's a very cool application of Seyfert in this deck because of how the levels work, and it's very easy to get to Lubellion. And like I'll be talking about later, Magnamut is just such a good card for this deck. Alright, so now you've gotten a basic glimpse of the deck, or at least, how to play it. Here is a core, a basic core of the cards you should run, in my opinion. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth on the cards in this section, just because this is just for the people that, want to play a deck, Odd Eyes plus Supreme King cards, and they don't know where to start yet. You can just copy-paste this, fill the 12 remaining spaces with whatever cards you feel like, and, just test out and, start from there. In the later section, I'll explain everything in a little more depth. And in terms of filling out these last 12 spots, you could either use, more engine. So, if you want to add a second copy of Seer, or maybe like a Lightworm and an Astrograph or something, and then just like 10 hand traps. And trust me, that alone would be, actually, let me just make some quick test sounds. I mean, I already know what's going to happen, but let me just make some quick test sounds. I'm so slow on this. Somebody save me. And I don't know. Troll. Doesn't really matter. Boop. Wow, it's full This is actually insane. This is not even fair. Oh, this is actually one of my favorite plays. Hold up. Let me put chain off, because otherwise... This hand is actually kind of insane, because you have like 2 non-engine, and even if you get hand trapped at literally any point, as long as it's not specifically Droll or Nibiru, this hand actually goes pretty hard. Wow, this hand goes pretty hard. Now, the reason I like this hand, which I swear was not deliberate, is that, actually, even if they Droll me, I could still like chain this and do some stuff. The reason I like this hand is because it doesn't matter if they negate the first Beyond the Pendulum, because we can just make a second Beyond the Pendulum with Gate Magician. And if they negate both of them, then we, we still have, full scales. So let's make BTP. Odd Eye Seer, scale this, Pendulum, doobity doop, Gate over here, Seer over here, Lightworm, Darkwurm, Gate Search, Trap card. I don't want to waste the thing in my deck, so I'll just do this. Now, at this point, if I were actually playing my real build, like my IRL build, I would go for a SP Little Knight with Darkwurm and Lightworm, So I'll just simulate the SP. I should have done that before doing the test hand, but I'll just simulate the SP with another Beyond the Pendulum. So now what's really cool about this is that when you do Butler's effect, it actually triggers Lightworm in the extra deck, so you can like chain block Arc. So let's go over here, Arc spec from deck. Exceed the Pendulum. Grab back. I already have normal summon follow-up, so I'll just grab back Seer. Even though oh yeah, exactly, because I have this engraved. Totally on purpose. Exceed Revive. And likewise, that here I can make Appaloosa, because you can make Appaloosa with normal monsters, and I would Dissolver for Vortex. Set 1 in the middle always when it's Imperm. Catch them every time. Set 2, and you have Vortex, Appaloosa, SP, Zark, Imperm, Veiler, follow up for days. Your opponent isn't playing the game. Now let me add. Hold up. If I'm gonna do these impromptu test hands, I might as well make this like my real extra deck. A little Knight. I think that's the important stuff. That's the least important stuff. Let's do a couple more test hands. Let's see what happens. This is unfortunate, but it's not bad. We still have 2 non-engine, which is kind of wild because I only put like, what, 9 of them? This is still 4 interruptions. It's not the worst. Actually, there's a couple ways to play this out. It depends on whether or not you want to Zark your opponent, because there's more than one way to play this out. So it kind of depends on what you're feeling. Because right now, when we Pendulum summon out Game Magician, we have the option to either search the trap card or wings. So if we search the trap card, then we'd end on hold up, how do I do this? We'd end on Zark, Persona, Ash, Veiler, which is 4 interruptions. It's alright, it's nothing crazy. The other option would be to go for wings. Search your other Gate Magician. He summons himself out. Make Absolute with the 2 Gate Magicians, and Absolute plus Darkwurm makes SP, and then Absolute makes Vortex. So you'd end with SP, Vortex, Persona, and 2 hand traps. So you have 3 interruptions instead of 2. If you would have gone for the Zark trap. So it just depends on how you want to end your board. Let me think. There's probably other ways to do it, and again, it depends on what your extra deck is running. This is based on my extra deck, but your extra deck can be different. Again, that's what I like about this. Heck, if you want to be really spicy, you could have even Pendulum summoned out the Ash, made a Barone play. Like there's a lot of stuff where Ash plus 5 is 8. There's a lot of different options you could have gone for. Hell, you get Ash plus this, that's 7. That's Ancient Fairy Dragon, but that's too spicy for this video. We'll leave that for another time. So I'll do 2 more test hands, or maybe 3. I don't know. These hands are kind of wild. I mean, really, how many hand traps did I put in this bitch? Only 10 and 40. That's not that much. I mean, it's not a little, but it's not that much either. Let's do this again. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm not even going to play this out. This is dumb. Because you have Joker plus Revolution Dragon. This alone is one of the combos I showed earlier, which will give you a lot. Plus you have Arc. Obviously, if Joker gets hand trapped, unfortunately, this is one of those hands where if your opponent shotguns their interaction, then you don't really end on much. You can try to make link plays, I guess, but nothing crazy. But if Joker doesn't get hand trapped at that point, you can go for like an Arc play, and even if they negate the Arc with an Ash, because Joker, hold up, let me actually do this. Because Joker would search out Seer, and at this point you can go for like Revolution Seer combos, and even if Arc gets stopped, like if they Ash Blossom the Arc, you're still gonna have more plays, because now you have Seer to summon back from the extra deck, which can then dump something with his on field effect. You can go crazy. I'm not even gonna play this one out. This one's dumb. Let's do 2 more. Well, this is a hand. Again, Jesus Christ, hand traps are stuck to me. Gotta love to see it. So you have Imperm Droll, that's always good to see non-engine. Now, unfortunately, if we... God damn it. If we want to do anything worthwhile, I think we can't end on Zark, because that would be pretty much the only interruption we'd have, and that's kind of weak. So let's go for some other stuff. So we got Gate Magician. You see, this is what I was saying earlier, that the Supreme King cards help you get into the odd eyes portion of your deck, because basically they're gonna help you make Beyond the Pendulum. So that's why I like maxing out on or playing many of the Supreme King cards as opposed to the odd eyes cards, because the Supreme King cards are better to draw. Okay, so I'm not gonna end on Zark. Pretty sure Seer is the play. Yeah, Seer is definitely the play. There's no world where that isn't the play. Pendulum! So at this point, if they nib us, we at least still have like Droll Imperm. So Seer should have been over here, whoops. Darkwurm and Gate should put them in defense. And again, at this point, depends on how you want to end it, because obviously we're gonna go for Seer, but Seer can either dump Butler, or it can dump something like Valet and then Exceed revive Valet, and Valet dumps the Butler. Just for the sake of showing something different, I am going to dump Butler this time around. Yeah, I'm just gonna dump Butler. I want to show something different. So we dump Butler. Then actually, in case your opponent is holding it wouldn't matter. Yeah, actually it wouldn't matter. In case your opponent wants to hold the nib, I'm just gonna do this from right now. I'll just make the absolute. Then we Butler, pop this, summon out Butler, our Dragon, summon out Valet, Valet dump. We're gonna dump Joker. Then we're gonna Exceed. Let me not fuck this up. I'm gonna do it like this so I have good follow-up. So Exceed, grab back Darkwurm, Exceed, revive Joker. And just like that, because this guy changes his level, we have 2 level 4s. Okay, I want to show, I guess, let me just finish this, hold up. Vortex, and at this point we have these 2 level 4s, which we could have overlaid into an Abyss Dweller if I had one. Or yeah, any rank 4 you want to make, but obviously right now Abyss Dweller is very nice, and we'd have a spare body. There's maybe a way to play that out to not have a spare body and like use it for something like an SP, but I wasn't thinking too much. I was just kind of freestyling it, but that's still pretty nice, because again, you have 1, 2, right, when you overlay these or link these off. So 2, 3 interruptions, 4 if you want to count this as 2, plus you had 2 hand traps to back up your board or to help you going second. Let's do 1 or 2 more. Oh, this is a hand of all time. It's still not bad. Again, we have to... Bro, what cabron? You're not supposed to draw hand traps this often when you're only playing 10. That's insane. Alright, so if my calculations aren't mistaken, no matter how I play this out, it's just going to be Zark Pass plus Ash Veiler. So I'm just going to use the card that I don't mind getting hand trapped. So if this gets ashed, I'd rather still have this in hand than this getting interrupted and being stuck with this in hand. So let's use this. Summon out Butler. Again, you don't really need to do this, but if they're gonna hand trap you regardless, I'd rather just get hand trapped now and get this over with. You could have also just hard scaled it. And we're gonna Wings of Light, Gate Magician, scale Gate Magician, do the switcheroo, Summon and attack this time. Now, unfortunately, we've already used wings, so even if Gate Magician searches another wings, we can't activate it. So we're just gonna have to search the trap card. And to be fair, this is not the worst thing in the world. We still have a monster, a monster negate, Ash, and a field wipe whenever we want, plus full scales. So it's not the best, obviously. It's not the worst either. And we would pass turn. I wonder what would we have drawn if we were going second. Ooh, sheesh. That would have made the whole difference. One more. Of course, I say one more and I get a busted hand. So no hand traps. What would I have drawn? Another Gate Magician. So no hand traps, but if this were a going second hand and we'd have Gate Magician as the 6th card, you would have a lot of plays, because you'd have this as an extension play, this as an extension play once you use Gate Magician's effect, and you'd have, options for your normal summon or options for your high skill, because this can search also Lightworm. Should I play this out? It's not even worth playing out. I'll just play it out for the funsies. Yo, so I decided to finish this IRL because I kind of messed up the combo. I didn't summon Astrograph at that moment. And anyways, there were some extra things I could have explained that I didn't, so I decided to just redo it IRL. So let's get it. So we have Dragon Shrine, gonna dump us Arc Pendulum and Darkwurm. Now we have Darkwurm effect, spec itself out from grave, effect to search out Gate Magician, scale Gate Magician, effect to pop, scale out Gate 0. Now we do have Astrograph effect this time. On res, search another Gate Magician. Now there's actually a couple ways you can play this out depending on how much you want to respect your opponent's hand traps. But you do end on one less interruption if you go for the, I guess it depends on your extra deck, but based on mine, I'd end on one less interruption if I go for the Gate Magician effect into Absolute Dragon play, which plays through Nibiru. Right, because you do like Absolute Dragon, you'd make Vortex on your 5th summon and you force them to nib you after BTP resolves. So I could do that. I'm not going to do that for this hand. I'm just going to go balls to the wall and say, you know what? If they have it, they have it. You got me. I'd still end on Zark though. BTP, search. We're going to search for Arc Pendulum. Before I forget, let's activate Wings of Light. Search as a copy of Lightworm. And now we're going to do the legendary Pend for 5. So at this point we have 3 trigger effects. We're going to do 1, 2, 3. So Lightworm grabs us back Darkwurm for follow-up. At this point, what you dump off Valley depends on your extra deck, because right now we have access to every single generic rank monster between rank 1 and 8, because right now you can dump any Odd Ice or Performapal level 1 through 7. This copies the level, and then Exceed the Pendulum will revive the other one from grave. And in the case of rank 8s, you can just dump Dissolver. Valley becomes a level 8, and then you can summon Dissolver from the grave, either with Seer's attack position effect or with Arc Pendulum being Arc Pendulum, right? With its scale effect. Not to mention we have a tuner, level 4, and also if you played him, you'd have access to Performapal Odd Ice Synchron, so a lot of possibilities depending on your extra deck. I'm just gonna make an M board based on my extra deck. So I'm going to dump Joker of all cards, which makes this a level 4. And Gate Magician searches Soul of the Supreme Celestial King. Now, if you get nibbed right here, at the very least, you can summon out the other Gate Magician you have in hand, and that way you force your opponent to run over in battle phase, so they have to combo you main phase 2. Otherwise, you're just gonna Zark them mid combo in main phase 1. So yeah, we can link these two off for SP Little Knight. Now we have Seer effect, gonna dump Butler extension effect targeting Seer, summon itself out, Seer popped. Now we have 2 trigger effects, Arc and Lightworm in the extra deck. So 1, 2, this adds itself back to hand. Arc summons Old Reliable Dissolver from deck. Then we can link 2+1 into Exceed, Now Exceed can either grab you back Seer or Astrograph. I'm just gonna grab back Seer. Then we have Exceed's secondary effect. Revive Joker. Overlay these two for an Abyss Dweller. 3 + 1 makes 4. Appaloosa. And of course I could have used Dissolver a long time ago, but I'm assuming that they don't have a nib here, because if they did, they probably would have done it way before he got on the field, or at worst case on summon. So now we're gonna use Game Magician's effect, dumping Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon to summon himself out. And finally, we're gonna use Dissolver to fuse away into the one and only Vortex Dragon. And pass. Well, set this. I'm just gonna leave it face up. And now pass. So we have for follow-up normal summon search low scale, high scale. If Arc survives, we have Seer, which can target one of these two guys in the graveyard to trigger Arc next turn if it survives. And then on field we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards that are interruptions, depending on how you want to count. So it's pretty nice. A little susceptible to certain cards, but even if they like Dark Ruler us, we still have like Dweller plus a trap card plus Insane follow-up, and they have to get rid of this card twice or banish it, because otherwise Arc revives it. So, you know, it's pretty decent. So, back to you, the pro. So, you might notice that I'm playing many of the Odd Eyes cards as one-offs, but I'm like playing multiples of the Supreme King cards, and that's because, as you saw in the combos, you can just search them with Beyond the Pendulum, and you know, they're still usable after your Pendulum summon, whereas the Supreme King cards, which I'm playing at multiples, help you make Beyond the Pendulum. So, you know, these cards, the Supreme King cards, in my opinion, are much better to hard draw, whereas the Odd Eyes cards, you know, they're fine to draw, but they're better to search, which is why, you know, I recommend for playing these at lower quantities, whereas the Supreme King cards are much better at higher quantities, in my humble opinion. Alright, so these cards down here are basically just some options you can choose to run for the deck. So there's the second Vortex and the second Exceed the Pendulum, the third Gate Magician. You can get away with 2, but the third one's nice. Kulia plus the original trap card. Basically, if you don't want to play the targets for Zark, you play this card and summon Zark to zone Kulia points to, so that it isn't negated by the effects of the trap. Astrograph. He's Astrograph. Also helps set up an early Absolute into Vortex before your Pendulum summon. Pend Evolution, because it's searchable off Gate Magician and searches Astrograph. Lady Ange, because she's a very cool card. I'll talk about her later on in the profile when I talk about Monkey Board. Spiral Flame Strike for some more consistency in seeing Arc, plus of course its pop effect. Lightworm, I'll talk about him more in my profile, but he's also a tuner, so that of course opens up synchro plays like Barone or many synchro 8s. So now I'm going to talk about my own build of the deck. I am playing a 60 card version, although I do want to point out I could very easily make this like a 45, 43 card list if I wanted to, and it'd still be consistent. It'd still have non-engine, like even like the example you saw in the deck core part of the video. But the reason I'm playing it at 60 is because Odd Eyes doesn't have, in my opinion, an issue with consistency. It does, however, have an issue with power. You know, many of the cards just don't do enough, don't plus enough, don't interact with the opponent enough or in impactful ways, etc. And so part of the reason my deck bloated up to 60 was trying to accommodate for all these other powerful cards that still complement the deck, but also let me, you know, actually allow me to play Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2024, right? And actually interact with my opponent and not just get, you know, lose every time I'm going second, for example, and even sometimes lose going first. So one of the reasons that this deck is very comfortable for me at 60 is that this deck has 18 cards that do the exact same function. So let's look at them. We have 3 Skullcrobat Joker, 3 Dragon Shrine plus a Foolish, 3 Wings of Light, 3 Darkwurm, 3 Revolution Dragon, 1 Terraforming, and 1 Sky Iris. And the 1 Terraforming is because I have another field spell, the Cashier field spell. So I have 2 targets. So all these 18 cards do the exact same thing, which is that they get me a Pendulum body on board, either Darkwurm or Joker, and they will get me Gate Magician to the hand. And as you already saw, if you have a Pendulum body on board, plus a Gate Magician in hand, any other extender, or in the case of these 4 cards, any normal summon, will set up a Pendulum summon, a decent Pendulum summon. And depending on what cards you have in hand, obviously that Pendulum summon, can be very big and very juicy and can lead to a lot of combos. Of course, Terraforming can search this, which can search this, which is why these 2 are basically the 4th and 5th copy of Revolution Dragon. So this doesn't feel like a pile deck to me, in my opinion. Just because it's not like I'm playing a bunch of different engines that all do different things. This is basically one deck with one main engine that does one thing and one thing alone, and that is Pendulum summoning. And we also have our honorary mention, which is the one of Monkey Board. There's been a lot of talk back and forth in like the Odd Ice community as to whether this card is worth running if you're running the Gate Magician stuff, because obviously they conflict in the scale. And also, even if you're not running Gate Magician, having him in scale conflicts with you doing Revo Seer combos, right? Because this guy's taking up your scale. But in my experience, the extra consistency this gives is completely priceless. Not to mention, he's also a very cool search target off of Beyond the Pendulum. Not all the time, but sometimes when I don't have the need to scale this guy, I will search him instead with BTP for that quick +1. And he can also search you Lady Ange, which is a very interesting card because what she does for the deck is that after you've thinned out your deck, you can draw 2 cards and try to draw into non-engine that way. That way, you can have hand traps in addition to whatever board you set up. And also, to try to end the discussion, Monkey Board is a 1-card BTP because he searches Joker, Joker searches Butler, Butler pop this, spec itself, BTP. So Monkey Board plus any Pendulum card, a low scale or high scale, doesn't really matter which, is full combo because then BTP will search your missing scale. So I don't think it's a point of discussion. Like Monkey Board, totally worth running. Also, one thing I want to point out about Wings specifically is that this card's really almost ridiculous because Wings is essentially an extender anytime you open it. Because Wings plus any of these other cards will mean you have 2 monsters on board, right? Because if you open this plus Darkwurm, then that just means this searches Gate Magician. If you open this plus Gate Magician, then you search Darkwurm instead. And essentially, Wings plus like a third of your deck will equal 2 bodies on board, which in turn, BTP searches the rest of your engine and combo pieces. So highly, highly, highly advise the Supreme King engine. So I'm also running 3 copies of Gate Magician. I've talked about him plenty through a video, so I'm not going to say anything I've already said. What I will say is that when you are activating his extension effect from the hand to spec himself out, you got to be careful what you dump because, for example, in my build, for how my extra deck is, the best target for me to dump, in my opinion, is the one on screen whose name I can't pronounce because it's too long. The reason for that is that it's the one that plays the best around Bystials, DD Crow, Called By, etc. when I'm trying to resolve the Zark trap card. Because, for example, I'm not playing any synchros in my extra deck other than Clearwing. So if I dumped Clearwing with this guy and I'm trying to resolve the Zark trap and it gets hit by DD Crow or Called By, then I can't Zark my opponent. If I dump my fusion target and it gets hit by a DD Crow, Called By, or Bystial, I would then be forced to banish my only other fusion target, which is Vortex. And I'd rather keep Vortex in my field. Whereas if, they hit with a Bystial or whatever, my XC target, then at the very least, I still have Absolute Dragon somewhere, Field Grave extra deck somewhere, which I can banish for the trap card. Not only that, but Odd Ice Rebellion is an Odd Ice monster, which means that, and this is rare, but it could come up, especially if you make your combo in a certain way, you can actually put back Odd Ice Rebellion from the graveyard to the extra deck with Odd Ice Butler's effect to negate attacks, which can come up and has come up for me if you're building an M board with strong monsters with low attack, like for example Appaloosa, SP Little Knight, IP Masquerena, etc. Also, the 3rd Gate Magician is mainly there for follow-up because a lot of turns, I will go through 2 of them, a lot of turn 1s I mean, so having the other one for follow-up is very nice. Also, this is very specific, but it's worth knowing because it can and probably will at some point come up for you. It's that Gate Magician's scale effect can play around imperm. If one column is negated by imperm, for example, and you want to be able to maximize the effects of your scales, you can like scale Gate Magician in the one that's not negated, pop, then scale this in the one that is negated, and then you still have a good column for your high scale if it has some kind of effect, like Arc Pendulum. So after that, we have 3 Fenrir plus the field spell to search it. So alongside Terraforming, that's basically 5 copies of Fenrir in the deck in 60, which is the main reason I'm running Terraforming. Although I really love how it's flexible because I can search either this or Sky Iris. Fenrir's here for what he does in most Pendulum decks, which is that he's basically half of Beyond the Pendulum. And in my opinion, Fenrir is more engine than non-engine because of the fact that he helps make Beyond the Pendulum. Because otherwise, like I've hinted at a couple of times, I'm not a super fan of ending on more interruptions in the forms of monsters on the field. Because, you know, this deck already does that. I'd rather have interruptions in other places. But because he helps make BTP, and obviously going second, he's Fenrir, you know, I really, really enjoy him. Also, yes, he does conflict with Dragon Shrine and Foolish. And no, I don't care. Bro, just be good and don't draw both of them. I'm playing. On a serious note, if you're going first, you can always just start with Dragon Shrine and then Pendulum summon out the Fenrir. If you're going second, it's always going to depend on the rest of your hand and what your opponent is doing. But sometimes, especially if you know that your opponent is on a lot of removal effects, you can start off with Fenrir. Like if you draw Fenrir Shrine, you can start off with Fenrir and your opponent will do you the favor of removing Fenrir from the field. I even had it happen once where I literally drew 2 Fenrirs plus Shrine, and I knew my opponent was on a deck that had a lot of monster removal, and I like spec the first one, it got blown up. Spec the second one, effect to search, at that point it got blown up. And then after that I activated Dragon Shrine and I was like, damn bro, I'm so much better than you. Yo. So but you know, if you don't want to, you obviously don't have to play this, but in my opinion, I'd rather risk having an awkward hand because I'm drawing good cards, aka Fenrir and Shrine, which sure, it's awkward to draw them both, but they're both very good, as opposed to not have good hands at all because I'm not running a power card like this one in a deck like this, right? Where again, I'll keep repeating this. This helps make Beyond the Pendulum. And now the actual reason why this deck and this archetype is even remotely viable, and it's because we can finally run non-engine and not have to risk bricking because we're not running or we're not drawing enough of our engine, you know, because the combos are just more efficient right now and we have a lot more starters. Obviously, whatever non-engine you pick is personal preference, and you know, it can also depend on the format. This is just what I'm running. You can pick whatever you want to run, or if you want to run all gas, all the best to you. What I will point out that's relevant to this deck is that, of course, usually it's best to have hand traps you can normal summon, so not imperm, because that way if you draw them plus Dragon Shrine, you know, Shrine plus a normal summon is combo. Also, cards that steal from your opponent are pretty nice, you know, TTT, Econ, Change of Heart, etc. Because any monster you steal, as long as it's an effect monster, can make Beyond the Pendulum. Don't steal a nib token. But yeah, you know, whatever non-engine you choose to play, that's on you. And at least in the case of my deck specifically, because I'm not ending on anything unfair, right? I'm not doing some kind of a morphage lock. I'm not yet doing the Zark hand loop, although it's in the lab, but I'm still polishing it up. But since I'm not doing anything like unfair that wins the game on the spot, I would like my end board to be complemented by other chainable stuff. So that's also part of the reason why I'm choosing to run this kind of non-engine as opposed to like hard going second cards or something. So the next thing I'm playing is a pretty decent sized bystial engine, including Regained. So we have 3 of the Bystial Lubellion with 1 Chaos Space to search him, 1 Magnamut, 1 Baldrake, and 1 Druis Worm alongside 1 Regained. So Regained looping with Magnamut obviously is insane, and I know that's nothing new, but Regained looping with Magnamut in this deck goes way harder, in my opinion, than in a lot of dragon decks. Because the thing is, Magnamut on its own, resolving in the end phase, is a full Pendulum summon for your next turn, right? Because Magnamut searches Revo, Revo searches Darkwurm, normal Darkwurm, search Gate, Magnamut Darkwurm make BTP, search High Skill, and at that point you can pend out your whole hand, plus you have your extract setup. So, as opposed to in other decks where Magnamut would get you what? A Lubellion, Red MD or a Little Red MD, which is just 2 bodies, a Chaos Space Legionnaire, which is fine, I guess, as an interruption. Like, you get full, like here you get a full Pendulum summon setup, plus obviously BTP can pop 2 cards. Like bro, you get so much off of just resolving Magnamut on end phase, and the fact that you can do it every turn with regain, again, goes harder in this deck, in my opinion, than many other decks. And I'm repeating myself on purpose because I want to sell you on the fact that if you take nothing else from this video, I want you to try this in your build of Odd Eyes. I mean, of course, I wish I did this video a little sooner because I know Lubellion went up in price recently. So of course, you know, if your budget, if it's within your budget, but I do highly recommend testing these cards out. Like, the difference is night and day. I will say this very briefly. Chaos Space is the last card I've added to the deck, and even though I do think it's, you know, worth the spot, there is an argument to be made that this deck does value its hand advantage, and having to go neg1 for this is kind of sus. Because obviously, if this doesn't get ashed, if this doesn't get ashed, if this on field doesn't get impermed, and if this on field doesn't get impermed, then of course, everything's Gucci when you're not getting hand trapped. But having to go neg1 for a play in this deck can hurt if and when you are interrupted, because this deck doesn't easily generate hand advantage. So having to discard a card early, you know, can be a little bit sus. If you don't want to play, you don't have to. But I just wanted to make that brief, you know, touch on that briefly. That said, drawing Chaos Space plus Darkwurm is completely free and almost unfair. It's basically like the new pen called Darkwurm. And especially if instead of Darkwurm, you draw Chaos Space plus Revo, because now not only you have a lighter Dark Engrave to banish for your Magnamut or whatever bystial you search, but Revo can't be normal summoned or set. So you can actually put this back with Chaos Space for that free +1 immediately. So yeah, very nice. And yeah, Magnamut is there because it's busted and it searches Revo. This is here as your search target if you're going first on the end phase for Magnamut, and this is here for when you're going second, because obviously if you're going second, then you want this, which actually does something proactive going second. This does something proactive going first. And Regain is a very pushed very pushed card. And the honorary mention I have here is Starliege Seyfert. I'll definitely be adding this to the deck. I was basically experimenting this while recording this video, like in the days I've been recording. And I definitely like what Seyfert does for the deck. And something to consider isn't just Seyfert, but you could also play like a One of Dragon Ravine and a Romulus in the extra deck. Because there are some certain plays, right? Because you can dump this or this with Shrine and grab the other one back if you dump them with Ravine, and there's certain other plays. But if nothing else, this is a card that you can Pendulum summon out, and when you do the play with Exceed that you grab back a monster, you just grab back Darkwurm, and then you use its effect, send itself in Darkwurm, grab Lubellion, and that way you have Regain loop. So it just helps get to the bystial engine. And any game that you have the bystial engine live, you'll have a way easier time killing your opponent. And of course, the other thing you can do is that if you hard open this plus Darkwurm, you can do the play I showed in the replays where you know, your first play is to send this plus Darkwurm, search Lubellion, Darkwurm spec from graveyard, and you go from there. You know, the reason I like this engine is because all these cards, to me, you know, they don't say bystial in their name. They all just say Revolution Dragon, because at least these 5, right, plus Regained, will end up getting me to Revolution Dragon, which will end up getting me a Pendulum summon. Now, we have these 7 very interesting cards. Feel free to pause if you want to read any of their effects, but we have 1 Arc Pendulum, 1 Lightworm, 1 Valet, 1 Supreme King Gate 0, 1 Odd Eye Seer, and 1 Butler. So these 7 cards are basically your engine requirements, but they're very interesting because they're engine requirements, but none of them are bricks. All of them are fine to draw. Arc is nice to draw because anyways, you always want to search him. And Arc is in such a funny position because it's the high scale I always search, but he's not that crazy to draw because unless you specifically open him with certain cards, Arc won't help you make Beyond the Pendulum. And again, you want to make your Beyond the Pendulum before your Pendulum summon. You don't just want to summon from hand because trust me, you'll have a worse time comboing off that way than if you at least try to go through BTP first. So even though it's good, even though I always end up searching it eventually, or at least, you know, one of these four, which are my high skills and my only high skills, you really want to search it. Like if I draw it, great. I don't have to search it. I can search another combo piece. If I haven't drawn it, cool. I'll make BTP and search it. Lightworm is actually not part of any combo that I'm running, although of course it's a tuner, so a lot of synchro potential there. But Lightworm is extremely important in my opinion for going second, regardless of if you have any combos dedicated to it or not. Because when going second 9 times out of 10, if your opponent has a negate, they're going to use it on BTP, or they're just going to stop you from even getting to BTP in the first place. So having this as a search target off of Wings or off of Gate Magician, which by the way, Gate Magician can search it directly without having to go through Wings, is crucial a lot of the times, because that way you will be able to get to your high skill without having to depend on BTP resolving or even being summoned. So that's the main reason I'm running Lightworm. There's also some combos, you know, if you open Dragon Shrine and dump Darkwurm, you can have this as your normal summon, and there's a lot of stuff there too. But it's mainly there as a high skill for when I go second and I have to search it. Valet, I can't talk enough about Valet. Valet has so much combo potential, and not just potential, it's used in a lot of combos. It does a little bit of everything, right? It can dump Butler to trigger Arc. It can modulate its level for rank 7, rank 4, even rank 5 plays. I'll show one at the end. Spicy stuff, yum yum. Valet's good, Valet's good. Combos for days. Gate 0, kind of a brick, but not really, not at all, because if you open this, plus any of the 18 cards I showed at the beginning, that's combo. Seer, a lot of people like playing him at multiples. That's fine. I don't play him at multiples because even though, yes, he can help trigger Arc, which can help you set up a BTP, that's only true in certain hands, right? Because Seer, for example, just for the sake of comparison, Seer combos with about 10 other cards in my deck. I don't want to count again. I counted once. It was like 10, 12 other cards in my deck, which is nice. But then we have a card that I'm maxing out on, which is Darkwurm. And Darkwurm combos with like, I think it was 17 cards in my deck or something like that. So it's not that Seer isn't useful to hard draw. It's just, it's more specific, the cards he combos with. So I'd rather just search him when I need him. But trust me, if I hard draw him, I ain't complaining, because Seer in hand also goes brazy, as you saw in the combos, right? I pretty much always search him once I already have a high skill. And Butler. Butler's funny. He's the only card in the deck that 3-card combos, meaning there's no 2-card combo that uses him. You need at least 3 cards to use him. But you need him to trigger Arc, and you know, you can be cheeky and put him in scale, as I showed in one of the combos, so you can like negate attacks on an Appaloosa or something. So Butler's cool, but I don't need to draw him, and I'd rather not draw him. Then we have Persona Dragon. I'm talking about Persona Dragon on its own because they are in a unique spot where you kind of just have to play them as a target off Arc, because it's like, aside from the Solver, it's pretty much the only other good target to summon off of Arc Pendulum that's offensive, that actually, you know, puts some kind of pressure on the opponent. But it doesn't combo with anything, right? If you hard draw this, you're only just gonna Pendulum it out or use it as a low skill, but it doesn't combo with anything. So unlike these cards, which all of them can help me actually make plays and make combo plays before and after my Pendulum summon, Persona is just kind of there, but you play it still as a target. Now, I swear I haven't been overdosing on Copium, but hear me out. I was playing the Odd Eyes Wizard Dragon with the 1 of Spiral Flame Strike, just because it's still a +1 at any moment, right? You summon this off Arc, crash it, grab this, quick +1. And I personally just always like having a out to spun trap cards, or I mean to floodgates in general, that's like searchable, and obviously this is a searchable out. I was running this as like a package, right? But the reality is, after some testing I've been doing these recent days, I'm really inclined to add Seyfert to my deck, and so probably I'm just gonna cut both of these cards. So I still want to talk about it in the vid because I'm still a believer. I'm still a Wizard Dragon believer, even though it is kind of a brick. I mean, you can pend it out. It's a level 7. You can use it for apps. So, but it is a brick. Let's not lie to ourselves. And the last two cards in the deck are Dissolver and the Trap card. So yes, you can make Vortex with Absolute Dragon. So you technically don't need to play Dissolver at all. And while that's true, that's mainly true going first. But I've noticed going second, that's when Dissolver really shows its worth, because there's a lot of times going second where your opponent has traded cards with you, right? Interruptions. And you just need one strong card you can summon off of Arc Pendulum, and you just don't have the time to like summon a level 7 plus another level 7 plus a way to link off the Absolute. Like, no, you just need to summon something strong off of Arc. And obviously this is the strongest thing because Vortex goes brazy going second because it takes care of 2 cards with its negate and its on summon effect. So that's the main reason I like Dissolver. And also, when you are going second, if you draw him, he's not a brick because he can spec himself in the damage step with his own effect. Going first, he's a hard brick. He basically stays in my hand. I'll just, if I like draw him going first, I'll just use Absolute Dragon. Like, I'm not bothering to special summon him. And of course, Fusion Summon Vortex is always clean because your opponent never sees it coming whenever they blow it up and you have Arc in scale. And the Trap card, Zark. Just don't draw it going second. So these are basically the only bricks of the deck, although like I said, Wizard is pretty much guaranteed coming out. If we don't count Wizard, these are pretty much the only bricks in the deck. And even then, going first, drawing this doesn't matter because you were going to search it anyways. Going second, drawing this matters, but it's not the end of the world because he'll just summon himself out in the battle phase. Drawing this is awkward if you don't draw Bystial alongside it, but at the very least, if you get to resolve the trap on the following turn, then this will still draw your card. And if you're going second and you're able to go for an access code play, granted, if you're doing that, you're probably winning. I mean, you're probably in a good position, but if you're able to go for an access code play, this will also replace itself by drawing a card. So even though they are bricks, they're not like hard garnets, and they're all useful technically if you hard draw them. So, you know, it's fine. So we have 2 copies of Beyond the Pendulum, the card I've probably talked about the most in this video. You need to make her, you really do. Like, it's not like you need her to resolve, but you need to make her. She's free advantage, she's a free card on the field because you just pen back the materials. She's hand trap magnet, so that way your other cards don't get hand trapped. And she's not once per turn. She's not just consistency, she's pressure when going second at least because of her pop effect, which is why I believe that having power extenders, again, like Kashtira's, like Bystials, again, you could technically play Horus as well. You could play a lot of other stuff, honestly. Like, I don't know all of the extenders in Yu-Gi-Oh, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of them that are good. And I will say it out loud. I genuinely think right now that she is better. I don't even want to say she's better than Electromite, is that she almost functions differently. Because the only thing, and this really is the only thing I can think of that makes Electromite better, is that Electromite can be done after you Pendulum summon, whereas you can't make her after the Pen summon. Other than that one specific use case, for everything else, I genuinely believe Beyond the Pendulum is a better card than Electromite. Please bring her back though, Konami. Thank you. Exceed the Pendulum, she's cracked. Just use her, you'll figure it out. She's cracked. A lot of combos, especially when you summon out from graveyard. One thing I really like is that she's a light, whereas Beyond the Pendulum is a dark, because that way when you make access code, you have at least 2 different attributes. That was definitely on purpose. I have no doubt in my mind. I wish I could play a second one, I really do. But she's usually the card that I will recycle with Branded Regained, specifically so that I have another one. So it works out. My choice for a boss monster going first, Appaloosa. Obviously, you don't have to run her, but obviously it's Appaloosa. Also, a thing I specifically like about Appaloosa is that she can negate Ghost Bell, which is important because Ghost Bell can negate the trap card. And you don't want to have to waste your Vortex negate on something so trivial like a Ghost Bell responding to the Zark trap. So that's another reason why I like Appaloosa specifically. I mean, any Omni negate would do the same, right? But Appaloosa. Then we have one of the beautiful Vortex Dragon, part of your end board. Very nice going second. Remember, its on summon effect can miss the timing, so anytime you summon it out, you want the card that summons it out to be Chainlink 1, which is mainly only important with Absolute Dragon. You never want to make Absolute Chainlink 2 or higher, so yeah. One Absolute for Vortex or for Overlord place if you're running him. Then we have the king himself, Zark, plus Clearwing, Starving, and Odd Eyes Rebellion. I do think these are the best targets. This, because it's the only synchro target you could realistically summon, because, you know, a hand trap level 3 plus a level 4, or even something like a Veiler plus Monkey Board or Seer. This, because it has a actually useful on-field effect. Specifically, it's good for outing Towers monsters. And I actually used to be running this even before the Zark stuff in previous builds. And I already talked about this when I talked about Gate Magician. I think having him in Graveyard is useful, both for Butler shenanigans and to play around bystial type cards or DD Crow type cards. And I want to point out, he is my main boss monster, or like my main big interruption. But he's not just good for the field wipe effect, although it's hilarious. I never get tired of using it. But Zark is also follow-up, because I never knew this before, but the guy has a battle phase effect, and that battle phase effect is actually relevant, because if you Zark your opponent, but your opponent is able to like get rid of, let's say, all your other cards, on the next turn, Zark can attack over something, summon out Darkwurm, search out Gate Magician from deck. And at the very least, you can link off into BTP and search your high skill or whatever else you want to search. So as a worst case scenario, Zark on his own will set up an entire Pendulum summon, which is very, very nice. So, you know, it's not just the whole gimmick of blowing their board up. This card is a legitimate follow-up. Then we have one copy of Access Code for going second. He's Access Code. One copy of Overlord. It's a quick and easy OTK button. It doesn't come up often, but when it does, it's very satisfying. So not necessary to run, but very enjoyable to play when it comes up. Then we have the one-off copy of SP Little Knight. Now, unfortunately, I do believe you need to play her in this deck if you want to play it optimally. And it is not because, oh, it's SP Little Knight, it's a good card, oh wow, ooh, SP Little Knight, play it every deck. It's actually because there is a very specific game state that happens extremely often in this deck, which is the following. Which is when you have exactly 2 level 7 monsters plus one other random monster and nothing else, and you want to go for an absolute play. So obviously you'd overlay these for an absolute, and at that point you want to link off the absolute. That play comes up extremely often, and so SP is simply the best link to link off into. That said, there are some alternatives to that. For example, in this very scenario, most of your deck is dark, so the leftover monster is probably going to be dark, and at that point you can link off into dark, the Dark Charmer. Another option is to play Gravity Controller. At that point you just make absolute in the extra monster zone and then link it off for Gravity Controller, so that also works. So there are workarounds, but again, SP is the you know, most optimal way to do it in my opinion. And the last 2 cards are Abyss Dweller and Typhon. They're basically just utility cards, although I will point out Typhon conflicts with Zark because you can't Zark your opponent under your own Typhon. So if you know you're going to go for a Typhon play, then don't. You probably shouldn't bother searching the trap card. And if you really need to go for a Zark play, then you should consider not making Typhon in that turn. So just keep that in mind. So one thing I'm still trying to optimize is abusing Zark's scale effects, both of them. Because, for example, the Floodgate effect can be an auto win in some matchups. Like, for example, Branded. They have no way to out Zark in the scale unless they hard draw something like Cosmic. And likewise in other matchups, as long as you can stop the SP Little Knight or the Access Code from popping Zark in scale, there's some other matchups that just can't deal with, you know, having their synchros and their XCs being negated. There's also ways to force a hand loop with Zark's other scale effect, which is what you're seeing in the combo right now. Now, what I haven't figured out yet is how to set this up efficiently, and also how to set it up in a way that I still have an Omni Negate live. Because, for example, in this combo I had to use up Vortex's effect to put Zark in scale. which means that if my opponent had something as simple as an imperm for Vortex, then that would have stopped my entire setup, which I used up like 3 cards to do. Likewise, if any of the cards dumped to the graveyard had any grave effects, then that also would have been kind of bad if I, couldn't negate them if they like triggered in grave. So I'd like to be able to set this up, Zark and Scale, while still having an Omni Negate live. And to be fair, there are ways to do it on your own turn going first, like in your main phase. Like if you head over to the Supreme King Discord, there's a couple of spicy combos that involve using Miracle Synchro Fusion to fusion summon him on your own turn, and then you pop him with either Vortex or Barone. That works. I'm just not a fan of those builds for a couple reasons, but I'm sure there must be other ways to set up Zark and Scale while still having an Omni Negate live, in case shit goes south, right? There's probably also a way to do it with Pendulum Magicians, right? Because you can like search out Astrograph and use Astrograph's on field effect to summon Zark. There's probably a way there too. But anyways, if you know of a way to set up Zark and Scale and still have like a Vortex live or a Barone, the Fleur live or something, to protect yourself in case your opponent still has some interaction, then I am all ears.